This is BYU Sports Nation, presented by the BYU Store. Simulcast on BYU TV and BYU Radio. Now live from Studio C, here's Jarom Jordan and Jason Shepard.
What is good? BYU Sports Nation is live. Your day-to-day play-by-play in Studio C, presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. It is Thursday, July 28th. Great to have you with us. I am Jarom Jordan, teamed up with the guy who apparently had an encounter on the road with BYU receivers coach Fesi Sitake. His name is Jason Shepard.
Yeah, look, I'm a little surprised. I'm just minding my own business, getting on the I-15, and somebody cuts me off. I don't quite understand. I didn't think much of it, and then all of a sudden, I happened to see this tweet from Fesi Sitake.
Okay.
If you would allow me, I would actually like to read it because he puts this out as a PSA, or for those that don't know, a public service announcement. So if you will, may I read the PSA?
It's an hour-long show. We have time.
Okay, let's do this. The lights before you get on the freeway are called ramp metering lights. Some say 1 vehicle per green, some say 2. Pay attention before you honk at someone and flip them off. Hopefully, the wonderful young lad who did that today sees this post. If you do, Jesus loves you. For the record, it was not me.
It was not you.
It was not me.
Also, you being called young is awesome.
Okay.
I love that.
Okay, that was uncalled for.
What? You look so young.
But no,
You're fit, dude.
It was, it was not me on the freeway. But I think
that is funny, and I can relate.
We all can relate to what
because when it's 2,
through.
I go, "Hey, it's 2. Let's go."
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's me speaking out loud to myself driving, obviously.
Sometimes when it's 1, it's 2. Right? No, was that not?
Is that not?
Did I overstep my bounds?
Well, who's going to govern that? You're just like, nope, I'm going to.
I'm just upset.
I thought I saw 2.
I'm just mad when they're on. Because they're not on all the time.
Yes.
It's obviously during certain times of the day.
Yes.
Every time I see them, I'm like,
You hate when they're on.
I hate when it makes me stop.
You know what?
I'm fine with just the natural flow of traffic stopping me. But for whatever reason, when I see the red go on, it gets me mad.
Like, well, you don't like red.
Well, but that's for other reasons.
Except for the Chiefs. But like merging out of the carpool lane when it's a solid line, I do not care. I'm like, I'm out of here. My wife is like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I am going." You're calling me
highway
authorities?
patrol.
Like to report a murder. Here's your show lineup. If the college football playoff expands to 16, there's a little bit of mentioning, a little bit of discussion here. How often would we expect BYU to be in it? Oh, interesting. The latest on the Big 12 potential realignment with Josh Neighbors of the Locked On Big 12 podcast and Dennis Dodd's report about San Diego State entering the chat. Hi, show. What's up? And Atiki Aliatiki keeps jumping out of the gym, but first, let's serve up some headlines.
We'll start with football. BYU defensive end Tyler Batty was named to the 2022 Werfel Trophy watch list. That is college football's premier award for community service.
Very nice. Supposed to have another big year. We expect big things.
Absolutely we do.
Jim Fredette and the Money team lost 83-81 to Red Scare in the Dayton Regional Final of the basketball tournament. Fredette had 10 points.
Cougar pitcher Ryan Brady signed a free agent contract with the Milwaukee Brewers yesterday. Congratulations to Ryan, including the 4 players who were drafted. That's 5 players from last year's team who are now on Major League Baseball organization rosters.
Later in the show, we'll discuss if we feel like BYU can replace those 5. That's a lot to lose. And swimmer Bradley Prolo took 3rd at the USA Swimming Futures Championship in the 200 butterfly with a time of 2:03.27.
You ever swam the butterfly?
I've tried in an amateur way. It is very difficult.
It is very difficult.
I don't know how they breathe in there.
I was a swimmer in high school.
Yeah.
I could never.
Shout out to Kearns.
Kearns High swimming. That's right. KHS. Go Cougars.
Go Cougs.
That was so hard. The butterfly.
So hard.
The butterfly is so hard.
Crazy hard. Jeez. All rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
You're talking about it, and so are we. It's What's Trending on BYU Sports Nation.
All right, a 16-team playoff has been discussed this week at Big Ten Media Days. Ohio State Athletic Director Gene Smith told ESPN the proposal for 16, quote, just seems to be out there, and, quote, you can't ignore it. Jason, how often would you expect BYU to be in a 16-team playoff? Should it go that direction?
First of all, I love how it was always 12. 12 is the number. Now all of a sudden, like 12. Who cares about 12? It's all about 16. This is an interesting question because The more I thought about it, my answer started to sway. And look, my initial reaction was, because we were having this conversation yesterday, and you said, how often would you expect, would it be crazy for BYU to be in the college football playoff under a 16-team format once in 10 years? And when you said that, I thought, well, no, of course not. I'm like, in fact, I don't think it's insane to think once every 5 years, BYU could be in that situation. And look, and maybe I'm looking at recency bias, and because I think we all have a tendency to do that. But just in the last 2 years, BYU would have finished in the top 16. So why would we think that once in 5 years would be so crazy? Certainly, once in 10 years, I think, is absolutely an achievable goal. Is once in every 5 an aggressive goal or an aggressive expectation? Probably, but I don't think it's crazy when you look at the fact that in 20 and 21, if we were in a 16-team format, BYU finished inside the top 16. So I don't think it is this outlandish statement that people would scoff at and say that has no chance of happening.
Yeah, once in every 5 would be awesome. I would love that. And you're right, the last 2 years have been special in terms of what BYU's been able to do, which is be 10-2 or 10-1 at the end of the regular season. Again, before you at us, it's got to be at the end of the regular season, not the final poll. And we're using AP because the college football playoff poll doesn't, well, they go end of regular season, right, and championship games. So, yes, once every 5 feels a little aggressive, but I also wonder, too, okay, in the Big 12, how do things change? Like, what's BYU like? Can BYU go 10-2 or better in the Big 12 in the regular season once every 5 years? That's the question.
And
because
that 10 is important.
That 10 is important because there's no single-digit win BYU team that is in the top 25 even at the end of regular seasons or through the 2 WAC championships, right? 96-98. Of course, the 96 team was. But our stat of the day tells us a little bit about how many times BYU's been in the top 16 in a long time. Hit it.
It's the BYU Sports Nation stat of the day.
Okay, BYU's finished the regular season inside the AP top 16 6 times since 1985. 6 times. Okay, 21 and 20 you mentioned. 09, 15th. 96, 5th. And 90, 13th. And 85, 9th. We're talking about 6 times. Let's say the playoff had been 16, right? And then here's the other thing that complicates this conversation. AQs, automatic qualifiers. If AQs are happening, and let's say, so when Utah plays in the 04 Fiesta, the Big East champ is Pitt, and they're ranked like 19th. They're not good. What if that happens with a conference? And it wouldn't happen with the Big Ten or the SEC. What if it happens with the Pac-10, if you will, or whatever they are?
The Pac-2.
Or even the Big 12. Like, maybe you want it because then you're the next team in there. But that could affect things. Is a G5 given automatic access like it kind of has been in the BCS and Year 6 era for a while? That all complicates it too, because then maybe you're 15th, but sorry, the last 2 teams are out because you weren't an AQ one in there, ... I would hope BYU would get in there once every 5 years would be awesome, because that's a team that you're talking about that's like pretty stinking good for BYU.
Absolutely.
Standards. To be 10-2 or better. Last year, BYU would have been in it, like you mentioned. 2020, unique season, BYU's in position, which is great. We hope that's the new norm, and that this sort of on-ramp of tougher independent scheduling, despite my clamor for not doing it, will prepare BYU to be in a better spot in the Big 12 moving forward, should the playoff get to that point. Now, if it gets to that point, that'd be fun. Are you in favor of a 16-team playoff, by the way?
Yeah.
Because it does dilute the regular season somewhat.
It does, but
it enhances the postseason. At
the end of the day, as I don't know if you've been following things, but money is kind of an important part of this discussion.
Sorry, what?
And if they go to, again, like I said, we all thought there's no chance they're going to get any more than 12. So if we can just get to 12, things will be good. But now all of a sudden 12 is so last year.
And 12 would be tough for BYU. You got to go 11-1, and then you probably need to win the conference championship.
Look, I am definitely in favor of playoff expansion, and if 16 is an option, I don't have a problem with it. I still think that it allows it to be special enough. it's not like the current bowl system where everybody has a bowl game.
Just an exhibition.
Bowl games are not special anymore. They're just not.
It's just a non-conference game.
Yes, exactly. So I'm in favor.
Location.
The point you brought up about the AQs, though, is really, really important. And it's part of the criteria that we just don't know about.
Yeah.
We certainly expect there to be AQs in the scenario. I just can't imagine the SEC and the Big Ten not making sure that there are certain qualifiers that get multiple teams in. Now, if there are if you have a conference that has multiple AQs, that's when you really get into a problem.
Oh, if they're doing division champs instead of just conference champs?
Yeah. So
because of size.
Because of size,
okay.
then you're in trouble. But because we see this in the NFL all the time, where when you win a division, if your division is horrible, but you win the division, you're leapfrogging over somebody who had a better record than you and a better season than you to get into the postseason.
You're hosting a wild card game against a better team.
And so you would see that type of thing playing out where you have some AQs that maybe aren't as good as other teams that didn't qualify for the AQ.
So maybe AQs shouldn't be in it.
Well, but I just don't see any scenario where they're going to sign off on it without AQs. And in all likelihood, probably.
Who are you referring to?
The SEC and the Big Ten.
I think they're going to be just fine either way.
I do, but I think they're going to want. I'm going to want a guarantee. That's what they're going to want.
They don't need a guarantee. They'll just be in it. Because they'll have.
But they're going to stack the deck. Whether they know they're going to be in it, they're going to make sure that there is in writing that they're going to get in regardless.
And they can control exactly how this goes. The Big Ten and the SEC are the most powerful players in the college football conversation. Okay, back to Brigham Young. So if in the Big 12, BYU enters the Big 12, how often do you feel like BYU is going 10-2 or better? You're hoping it's once every 5 years?
Yeah, you're hoping that it's at least once every 5 years. That seems to me. Again, it's an aggressive expectation, but based off
we're not talking goal, we're talking expectation.
Yes,
goal is every year.
Based off of the trajectory, I think this is what this program is trying to get to. So if you can be in this once every 5 years in this situation, I think you're in a really, really good spot. And certainly once every 10 years, the expectation would be to be in a college football playoff game.
Well, of 16 teams?
Of 16.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Once every 10 years.
No.
Once every 10 years in a 16-team format, absolutely, that would be an expectation.
Once every 10 years. Yes.
For sure.
That's a fair thing. We only have one season all time that we can really look at to know whether BYU can hang with that type of schedule.
Right.
It was last year.
Yeah, you're right.
It was last year. And BYU totally did, which is exciting. So you're talking about trajectory. Yes, it's not where you've been, it's where you're going.
Right.
And that's exciting. Next year certainly won't be what the last 2 years and this year is. It's going to be a new challenge for BYU, being in the Big 12, losing a lot of big pieces. But the hope is that BYU can replenish, and then in 2024 get after it and see where we're at. And maybe 25, BYU is competing for a conference championship. Maybe 24, I don't know. But it's exciting because now BYU has access to something it has not had.
Yeah.
We've had to essentially for a decade plus, Jason, explain to people BYU has no automatic access to any New Year's Six anything. They have to out at large SEC and Big Ten teams essentially, and that's been difficult. BYU was probably a foot away from that last year from Oklahoma State should they score against Baylor in the Big 12 title game, perhaps being in a New Year's Six game. I mean, they were that close. And if you don't lose to Boise State at home, maybe you're in there. Maybe you out at large Oklahoma State. Probably not. But I'm excited to see if it gets to a 16-team playoff. BYU needs to be in that thing every so often, which brings us to our question of the day. If the college football playoff were to expand to 16 teams in the future, how often would you expect BYU to make the playoff? Let's hear from you in Voice of the Nation.
This is the Voice of the Nation on BYU Sports Nation.
At Cougar70 on Twitter. You can weigh in on Instagram and Facebook as well. Lots of factors are involved, but the Big 12 should have at least 2 teams in the playoffs, so the Cougs wouldn't have to go undefeated. That's the exciting part. You don't have to go undefeated suddenly.
One loss does not eliminate you.
Yes. A conference runner-up could get the invite. Yes, the runner-up in 4 of the last 5 years in the Big 12 has had a New Year's Six at large. That's not the 16-team playoff, but that's kind of the 12-team thing we have now, right? I think in a couple years they will be in the conversation. Most years, you're going to have to, and we'll see what happens, because we had the news in the offseason, Jason, that a conference can determine how it wants to run its conference championship. You don't need divisions per se. So BYU will need to go, you would think, 10-2 or better to be in the mix for the conference title game, which those will still exist, I believe. Those will still, they're too big of a money grab for TV. Christopher West on Instagram. At least once every 4 years, so a little more aggressive than your 5.
One-upping.
Topper. BYU's in perfect position to succeed in the Big 12. Honestly, I would not be surprised if they won the Big 12 title within the first 3 years of conference play. Ooh, what do you think of that? 23, probably not that year, but maybe 24, 25. Joining the Big 12 could not have come at a better time for BYU. Well, it would have been nice in 96, let's be honest. We've already got a top 25 team. Now when you add on Power 5 recruiting, BYU is going to be a national powerhouse. Well, hey, Christopher West, that's the hope for Brigham Young football. You just encapsulated it.
I think everybody would be on board with
That's
that. There's
the
no
hope.
question
Let's
about
go.
that. All right, coming up, more videos of a 7-footer jumping things.
More of that. Plus, Josh Neighbors of the Locked On Big 12 podcast discusses the playoff proposal and the latest with the league, little conference realignment. This is BYU Sports Nation.
When my grandfather started this company in 1947, he couldn't have envisioned what we would ultimately become. We realized that our value to our customers is that we will be there day after day, year after year, doing whatever we need to find solutions to the challenges that they face. We are committed to be honestly better in all that we do, in every opportunity that we have to serve our customers.
Paul Brandt is laying his guitar aside and picking up a hammer.
There actually are things that can be done to help people in situations like this.
This is our house for real.
I don't think you can ever dream too much.
As the receivers become the givers, they in turn help themselves. Watch Paul Brandt's Build It Forward on BYU TV or with the free app.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
It's the final BYUSN special of the summer as we look back at 2020 and BYU football performing in a pandemic. Tune in tomorrow at noon Eastern on BYU TV and BYU Radio.
What a year it was in 2020. Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation in Studio C. Jarom Jordan alongside Jason Shepard. We now welcome in to offer some perspective on conference realignment and the Big 12 and much, much more, the host of the Locked On Big 12 podcast, Josh Neighbors. Josh, welcome to the program, man.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, let's talk about what came out kind of during Big Ten Media Days and more of this 16-team playoff conversation, which is fun. Do you feel like that's an inevitability, or do you think it may go to 8 or 12 before it gets to 16?
Yeah, there was some irony with having Kevin Warren be the one who said, hey, I've heard 16 out there after he shot down 12 last year. I actually hadn't heard 16 had been tossed around, right? But I hadn't heard too many people speaking about 16. That wasn't a big thing. I mean, I think that 12 model that Craig Thompson, Bob Bowlesby, Jack Swarbrick, and also Greg Sankey put together was a pretty strong model, in my opinion. I like rewarding conference champions. I like rewarding, maybe a G5 group as well. But obviously with conference realignment, who gets rewarded really has changed. So, I think the hope for the Big 12 is that they get a seat at this table. I think they should. I mean, think about it last year. Like, if there was a 12-team playoff last year, the Big 12 would have put 2 teams in that. Baylor and Oklahoma State, rather, would have both been in there. So, I'm not in a rush to go from 4 to 16. Maybe we do it eventually, but I thought 12 was kind of a nice place to do it. And I'm hoping whatever model we do get, we get some campus games. That's kind of a big thing for me, because I'm tired of these events in these big NFL stadiums where it feels like a more corporate event than it does, Notre Dame versus Alabama, or a Cincinnati versus Alabama, or Georgia versus Michigan. I don't like those kind of corporate atmospheres. I want some campus games.
I think it's interesting that, obviously we don't know what criteria would follow, whether it's 12 or in this circumstances 16. We don't know if there would be automatic qualifiers. I think most of us assumed that there would be. It makes sense. I think you'd have a lot of people upset if there weren't. But do you think AQs would help or hurt the Big 12 chances of getting into a 16-team college football playoff?
The only circumstance in which it would hurt them is if the AQs it was multiple AQs in the same conference that wasn't the Big 12, right? So, like, if it were the Big 10 West and Big 10 East, or whatever they're going to call the divisions when they have, 20 teams in it. If it's the Big 10 West champion and the Big 10 East champion both get in, and the champion of the Big 10 in the conference championship game gets the bye, right? Like, if that were the way that you were doing it, that could potentially hurt the Big 12. But as long as there are AQs, I definitely don't think it's going to be a negative for the Big 12 if they're included in that. Now, maybe, the one way it could hurt them is if the committee says, well, we already filled our quota of Big 12 teams. We're not sure there's more than one deserving team. And, let's just say, like last year, Baylor is at 5 and gets the AQ. And then they say, well, do we think Oklahoma State's really that good? Is that conference really that good? That could be the way it hurts them for secondary teams. Obviously, automatically getting somebody in would be helpful, generally speaking, especially after what we've seen. But I think it's 16, like, you're going to have AQs. There's no way you have a 16-team playoff without having some AQs in there. I don't think you could just, seed them all 1 through 16. I don't think that would appease too many people, but we'll see. I mean, Greg Sankey and Kevin Warren seem to be the ones kind of calling the shots now, and they've kind of almost publicly acknowledged that. Yeah,
there's no, commissioner of college football, but those two sort of form the most powerful two, if you will.
The brain trust.
Right. I want to talk about parity in the Big 12. So the Pac-12 has been criticized the last several years for not having a dominant team, eating their own, if you will, not spitting out a team that even makes the playoff, and if they do, it's not that competitive. Washington 2016, for example. The Big 12, I'm excited about the parity of it, but also there's a little bit of danger in that you may not have that dominant program that can hang at that top level. What's your perception of how the league is going to perform and who that top team will be, perhaps, and how they do when Oklahoma and Texas leave?
Yeah, so, I mean, Oklahoma, you have them with the run of 6 straight conference titles through 2015 all the way through 2020, right? I mean, they were the top dogs in this conference. And then you get Baylor last year. And I think what's interesting with Baylor is they were picked to finish first in the conference this year. They have a really difficult schedule, including a road game at BYU. It's coming up in the second week of the season. I'm pretty pumped for that game. I'm sure you guys are as well. I think they're kind of in the catbird seat because when you think about Baylor football the last few years, or last decade or so, they've had 3 separate coaches who have performed really well there. I mean, Art Briles, say what you want about Art Briles, and I've got plenty to say about that, but as a coach did a really good job. Then obviously you had Matt Rule, who is now with the Carolina Panthers, did a great job there with Baylor as well. And then you have Dave Aranda come in, and now, he has a great season, wins the Big 12 championship. So to me, I think Baylor is kind of in that position because we've seen them succeed over the last decade or so. Oklahoma State's been the most consistent over the last 2 decades because of what Mike Gundy has built. So I think they've got a really good chance to be up there too. And then I am very curious to see what happens with the new schools that you bring in. I think Houston has a chance. I think Cincinnati has a chance as long as Luke Fickell stays there. UCF, you never know what they could concoct with, obviously Gus Malzahn there. So I think all those schools have a chance, but if I were to pick one to kind of be the top dog, I would say it's Baylor in the lead. But I think as this conference is going to be competitive, and that's what's going to be fun about the conference. But I don't think we all just want the conference to be competitive. We want it to be competitive in a nationally relevant way, where everybody's not just like, oh, it's a fun 10-2, the same way an American team could be viewed as a fun 10-2. No, we want to be taken seriously, even if there is some parity in the league.
Josh, this year it's about the Big Ten making decisions and then the Pac-12 having to react to those. A year ago, it was the SEC making decisions and then the Big 12 having to make their decisions. And look, maybe it's somewhat self-serving to say this, but obviously we think they did a pretty good job on how they rebounded and brought in the schools. So this year compared to last year, where do you feel the Big 12 is, and what type of player do you expect them to be in terms of conference realignment moving forward?
Yeah, I think they're fine. I mean, you think about where we were last year. Yikes, there was some serious anxiety from a lot of parties about the survival of the conference. But in kind of the long run, like, it's actually good that it happened when it did. It gave them the inside edge because the best brands on the board were UCF, were BYU, were Cincinnati, and were Houston. And actually, luckily for the conference, I mean, 12-2 was Houston, and then also Cincinnati made a playoff run, and BYU had another really good season. And then UCF, obviously, they had their issues because Dylan Gabriel getting injured, but still ended up having actually a pretty nice season record-wise. So I think they're still in a good spot. I believe that. And look, they're going to be in player and conference realignment. They're not going to have the first choice. But to me, the one advantage the Pac-12 honestly has, and this is being pointed out, is that the Pac-12 after dark games are just by themselves, which has given them some massive advantage. You're seeing all these articles written about the television advantage that these West Coast schools have. Washington State is more viewed than Oklahoma State, right? Why? They're on 11 o'clock every night. So, like, really, how much of a brand advantage is that? And I think the question is, could the Big 12 absorb those schools and also play some games later on at night to maintain those television windows? Because the Pac-12 is not liking what they are seeing in terms of, like, the money they're being offered. So could the Big 12 dip into that television window? If they dip into the Pac-12 is actually a big question I've had the last few days. And then also, are Oregon and Washington going to be snatched up by the Big Ten? That's a huge question because those are the two best brands to me left on the board. The Big 12 could snag those. It'd be fantastic. But I think the Pac-12 is, John Wilner's been saying it's 4 teams away from getting collapsed. I think if Oregon and Washington go, it's pretty much death sentence. I mean, you can put the nail in the coffin. Or if the 4 corner schools get taken by the Big 12, that's also nail in the coffin too for that conference.
We're talking to Josh Neighbors of the Locked On Big 12 podcast. I feel the same. If 2 teams go, you're down to 8, and who are you going to add that keeps you Power 5? Maybe you still are. I don't know. But San Diego State has entered the conversation, according to Dennis Dodd, with some sources. Sources, take them for what it's worth. Should the Big 12 proactively try and get a San Diego State and or other teams that aren't in the Pac-12 before the Pac-12 perhaps adds? Because it feels like the Big 12 obviously have said, hey, we're open for business, right? But does the Big 12 need to expand to plunder the Pac-12, or does San Diego State need to come in before?
It would certainly be nice if they did expand, but they don't need it. Like, there is a reason why the Big 12 walked away from an all-out merger with the Pac-12. They actually don't straight up need that to happen for them. So that is, that they are in a position of power with that. I'll tell you what, guys, the San Diego State faithful have been in the mentions. They have been in the DMs. They have been commenting on YouTube. They want in. They want to see at the table. I don't blame them. Obviously, they're in a market in San Diego. It's one of the larger markets. It's kind of out there available right now to potentially go to, and good both football and basketball programs. So I think that they're in play, and I think the one thing to be careful with is this: like, taking somebody to take them off the board makes sense only if you can make sure on the back end you're getting the teams in that you want. Because if what's going to happen here is the Big 12 is just splitting up the pie, not increasing the value, and it's basically becoming more teams, less overall value in the television contract, well, that's not necessarily a good thing. So you have to make sure that you're making the moves for the, I know everything's the right reasons kind of out the door, but like the right financial reasons, right? You have to make sure that you're consolidating kind of power when you make this move. If you get San Diego State and Arizona, you kind of want a Utah and Arizona State to go with it, or a Colorado and somebody else, or however many schools you could pluck or plunder, to use that term. So you have to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. But I know there are plenty of San Diego State fans out there who they would love to get in the Big 12.
And we've heard from them for a long time in the WAC and in the Mountain West. And so
you hear from them all the time.
Very familiar with the show.
A vocal group. It's a vocal group.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, Josh, we appreciate the time. Best of luck with covering all of this, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, for sure, guys. Anytime.
Josh Neighbors of the Locked On Big 12 podcast. Great perspective there, and it's interesting because obviously San Diego State wants to be in this show, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. But I'm just happy BYU's in, and then we hope that, the Big 12 can be equal to or better than it is as of now.
Look, I agree 100% with what he said. Look, it sounds great that if you're going to go after, let's say, for the sake of argument, that all of these sources that are out there, that San Diego State really is in play for both. Like, if both want, there's obviously a reason why both want them. So if you can get them and it hurts the other side, that's great. But if bringing a team in ultimately dilutes finances overall, does it really make sense? I agree with his point there 100%.
We'll talk about more of this coming up later in the program.
All right, coming up, how we would feel about the show being in the show in the Big 12.
Okay. Plus, the Tiki Alia Tiki is flying, and Jaron Hall's got game on the golf course. This is BYU Sports Nation.
Hi, Spencer Linton here, letting you know when your company joins the BYU team as a corporate partner, your brand can be featured in sports programming on BYU TV and BYU Radio. In addition to all of the great games, you can be part of the BYU coaches shows, place your message in Countdown to Kickoff, basketball pre- and post-game shows, and each weekday on BYU Sports Nation. We invite your team to join ours and become a corporate sponsor of BYU Athletics. For details, email sponsorship@byu.edu today.
Trio Orem Senior Living believes in empowering seniors to live life to the fullest. We help eliminate stress out of daily life when you live at Trio. Less time focusing on housework means you can socialize at one of our many events, with safety in mind, of course. And did we mention our spacious apartments with modern amenities? Learn more about setting up a private tour at trioorem.com.
Minky Couture luxurious blanket. Getting cozy with family and friends. A gift for everyone. Minky Couture, official luxury blanket of BYU Athletics.
Familiar with the BYU TV app? Yes.
I beg your pardon?
Sure, it's got great original TV shows. But it also gives you access to family films for free.
Wow. Awesome!
So gather around, grab some popcorn, and let us do the rest.
It'll be fun.
Watch some of your favorite films anytime, anywhere. With the free BYU TV app.
I like it.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Maersk, your e-commerce logistics shipping partner.
This is BYU Sports Nation. To interact with the show and get great content throughout the day, follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok.
Great to have you on this July 28th. He is Jason. I am Jarom. Let's whip it. Cookware Friends, presented by Maersk, your e-commerce logistics shipping partner.
Fessy Satake making another appearance in the program today.
That's twice.
I know.
More Fessy.
Jaron Hall and Fessy Satake both went golfing yesterday, and Jaron posted his score, which was quite impressive, shooting 5 over. Should Fessy be a better golfer than Jaron?
Quarterbacks have game, dude.
They do.
Like, it's the hips thing, I think. That's what I've been told. Seriously. When the amazing quarterback factory shows up and they play, they can all play. No, Jaron should be better than Fessy because quarterback. But I have not seen in any facet of life where Fessy is not amazing. He's just good at everything.
Fessy's good at everything. Should he be better? I don't know. Like, everybody's got their own, you're as good as you want to be. So I don't know if I have an opinion on this so much, but I like what you said. The quarterbacks tend to be pretty good at golf, so it doesn't surprise me that Jaron shot the impressive 5 over.
Like, beware the backup quarterback who stinks at golf. Because I don't know if he's going to be good at quarterback. Now that most of the major college football award watch lists have been announced, which BYU player named to a watch list has the best chance of actually winning that award?
BYU will sweep the awards this year.
Oh my gosh.
I'm done. Go ahead, take it up. Look, I mean, I think the kicking awards, I think, are the ones I go to because we know how good Rico and Oldroyd are. I'm actually going to go with Ryan Rico, the Ray guy.
I love Ryan Rico. You know I love Ryan Rico.
Yes.
I also want to mention Blake Freeland has a chance, as if BYU has a great year, I'm talking like 11-1, 12-0, like amazing. Blake Freeland's going to be everywhere, all over stuff. He's got a shot because he's a first-round type talent right now.
Blake Freeland is going to make a lot of money playing football.
Yes.
A lot of money playing football in the National Football League.
He is, he is the best offensive lineman BYU's had in a minute. Clark Barrington, amazing guard. He's got a lot.
Yes.
I think from this group of kind of the top 7 O-linemen, we're going to see 3 or 4 in the NFL.
Look, and here's the thing.
Next couple of years.
Here's the thing that's exciting about that. To that point, I think we're at a point with that position specifically where we're not going to be surprised now when multiple players on BYU's offensive line start getting this type of attention.
And
because this type of talent is just coming into the program, and it's being replenished by other high-level talent.
This is where BYU needs to be if it's going to be successful in the Big 12. You got to have a quarterback that is draftable, and then number 2 is nice, right? Zach Wilson. But Jaron Hall, do it again, then get another one. And then O-lineman. If you can put other positions in there, great. But, like, you'll always be good if you have a good O-lineman and a good quarterback. Always.
All right, yesterday we showed a video of Atiki Ali Atiki jumping and touching the top of the backboard. Reminded me of when I did it. I never did it.
Excuse me?
Then BYU basketball posted a video of Atiki doing vertical testing, and it was really impressive. What do you want to see Atiki jump in the next social media video?
I want him to jump over St. Mary's gym because it's so small, I think.
So instead of jumping out of the gym, you want him jumping over the gym?
I'm going to steal your idea from this morning on our call. Over Mark Few.
Okay. I want him to pull a Blake Griffin and jump over a Kia.
Over a Kia?
Yeah.
You're a Kia guy.
Look, I know somebody that has a Kia if he would like to jump over it.
You're willing to risk it?
No, my daughter has a Kia.
Oh, okay.
So.
Just in case he lands on the windshield. In high school, I jumped and landed on my own windshield and totally broke it.
You know all those videos of people, like, when the car's coming at them and then they try and, like, jump over, and most of them miss and get their, like, knees clipped?
Oh, my gosh, yes. Like, reconstructive surgery. Yeah. Or the one with Kobe that was totally fake.
Yeah.
I think Nike did or something.
Or was it?
Or was it? As mentioned in headlines, BYU pitcher Ryan Brady signed with the Milwaukee Brewers as a free agent, totaling 5 cougs from last season at the pro level. Will BYU be able to replace that talent loss for next season?
I think the answer is yes. And look, of the players that left, you're talking mostly about pitching. It's the pitching depth that BYU had last year. Now, granted, they lose some really important pieces of their relievers. Obviously, Ryan got a start as one, but I think they have the guys there, very much like what we were talking about with the offensive line with BYU football. That was a strength for this team last year because of the sheer numbers and depth and talent that they have at those positions. So I think they're going to be just fine.
Trent Pratt is got his work cut out for him in recruiting, but a new era of BYU baseball. I'm happy about the fact that BYU had 4 picks and a free agent. You want guys going to the next level. That's a recruiting tactic, and a lot of people.
2 guys in top 10 rounds.
Incredible.
Yes.
And Andrew Pintar in the 5th, despite only playing 17 games, like unbelievable.
Cy Nielsen going in the 8th round of the Pirates.
Hey, shout out to Spanish Fork, both those guys. Los Dons.
Yeah, it really is exciting. And now, look, and the recruits that are coming in, year after year after year, I keep hearing it's the best recruiting class we've had. And next year, it's the best recruiting class we've had. They're continuing to do this. That's why I feel very, very confident, even though they lost a lot of talent, they're going to be able to replenish that with talent.
And Big 12 baseball, bigger challenge.
Without question. There's no doubt about that.
And there's some leagues that it's a lesser challenge. Like in women's soccer, it's actually not as good as the WCC.
Right.
But baseball, in almost every league, it's going to be tough.
Yep, no question. All right, coming up, a rise and shout out to playoff expansion. What? Did it happen?
What? And San Diego State has entered the chat, the latest in the Pac-12 and Big 12 realignment discussion. This is BYU Sports Nation.
I know what it's like to be overlooked, to be doubted, to fly under the radar. I only had one offer coming out of high school, but I was ready for every moment, every opportunity, and every shot that I got. Now I'm playing professional basketball, aiming to be one of the best shooters on the planet. And I'm just getting started. Be ready for your moment with Rapid Reboot, the future of rapid recovery.
Accidents don't just happen 9 to 5. They happen when you least expect them. The team at Siegfried and Jensen is here for you 24/7. Nights, weekends, every day, every hour. Really here for you. No matter when you call us, you'll speak to a real person and have access to the same expertise and personal attention as always, and get the legal help you need when you need it. Nights, weekends, every day, every hour, 24/7. Learn more at siegfriedandjensen.com.
This is BYU football with Kalani Sitake and Greg Wrubell.
When I was younger, I was a better dancer. Don't show any more dancing. Yeah, okay, good. I think we've developed some really good habits the last couple of weeks and looking to step it up again. A lot of great things can happen when they care.
Not bad. That's good stuff.
Hey. Yeah, thank you for ending on that one. That was a good one.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Watch the season debut of After Further Review as Dave McCann, Blaine Fowler, and David Nixon look back at Tyler Allgeier's run into history. Watch it anytime on demand on the BYU TV app.
What an incredible year that was. And now we have Christopher Brooks from Cal coming in behind that awesome offensive line.
I should have rewritten the promo and said Atlanta Falcons starting running back Tyler Allgeier's run into history.
He's getting a ton of love. People think he's going to get a ton of carries, maybe being the number one there.
Look, we talk about this all the time. You have to have the talent to be able to play, but it also, so much of your success is determined on the team and the fit. He went to a perfect team that needs a guy like him. They do not have a lot of running backs in the room right now, and certainly guys that can offer what Tyler can. So he has gotten himself into a situation that is perfect. Now it's up to him to be able to take the opportunity, take the bull by the horns and make the most of it.
And we'll see how it goes because there's a situation in Atlanta because you have Marcus Mariota as starting quarterback perhaps. They drafted Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati. So we'll see offensively what the Falcons bring to the table. But Tyler Allgeier is getting some serious love.
It's good to see.
Okay, Dennis Dodd of CBS Sports yesterday weighed in from Big Ten Media Days, talking about what the Big Ten is looking at and whatnot, mentioning that sources were saying to him, sources, take for what it's worth, that obviously Oregon and Washington still in the mix there, and Stanford and Cal as well. They have not really been mentioned very much in this. Also, he said the Big 12 is zeroing in on westward expansion with Arizona at least, according to sources. There's no indication if Arizona State would follow, though CBS Sports previously reported that ASU, Colorado, and Utah were the Big 12's targets. San Diego State is in play for both the Pac-12 and Big 12 sources indicate. Your thoughts on San Diego State in the mix here?
Well, and it's interesting because of all of the expansion talk and who's going to poach who from this conference, there really has not been a lot of talk about San Diego State or Boise State. Now, I know they get mentioned probably more in regards to the Pac-12 than anything else.
Boise State, it's like
Boise
tumbleweeds rolling through there.
Boise State's in some trouble in terms of wanting to take that next step because I don't know where it comes from right away. Now, obviously, things, as we have seen, can change very quickly. But it is interesting that now you're starting to hear more and more about San Diego State. And according to Dennis Dodd, who I trust when it comes to Big 12 type things, I trust Dennis Dodd. He lives in Kansas City. He's in that area. He's covered this conference for a really, really long time. So if he says it, I know that's coming from a legitimate place. My idea on San Diego State, look, we could sit here and be petty and vindictive, which, we
do often.
We do often, and it's fun to do. But look, I've always said, look, if it helps the overall growth of the conference, then it's a good thing to bring them in. If it also sort of on the side, takes an option away from the Pac-12. That's sort of another positive, I guess.
It's an arms race right
now. Yeah,
now.
absolutely. So overall, if it's something that legitimately brings value to the Big 12, then I like the idea.
Well, it won't in the TV deal because hardly anyone does. Like BYU wouldn't, Utah wouldn't, you know what I mean? Meaning, are we going to get more if that team comes in? No, you're going to split the pie more ways. And the reality is only Notre Dame is left out there that isn't with somebody already that would do that.
Let's just go get Notre Dame then.
You would think. Nice.
Done.
You think we can't even get them to come to Provo. You think Oregon and Washington would, right? Obviously, USC and UCLA did. Texas and Oklahoma did. There's not a ton of teams that do that. But in the race to don't plunder us, we'll plunder you,
right.
Does the Big 12 go and, try and get, obviously, teams from within the Pac-12? That would seem the move. But it is interesting to think about, what if the Big 12 was like, we're going to add San Diego State and Boise State to get the two best other teams out west, and then, yes, we would still like to add the four corners. We would still like to add Oregon and Washington. Then you have the mega conference west of the Mississippi, and everyone's playing for third anyway. I wonder how proactive the Big 12 will be with this, because the Pac-12, 10 in 2024, are actively in negotiations with ESPN and Fox to sign a TV contract and get into a grant of rights that will solidify the future for the Pac-12/10. It's interesting to see what's going to happen here. Do they feel like they need to expand in response or not?
So let's go with what the report, literally what it says, that right now, let's say San Diego State and Arizona. I do find it a little odd, although we've seen things over the last couple of years that we would never have expected.
Without BYU.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I do find it a little odd that Arizona State and Arizona wouldn't make the move together. But again, we've seen there's certainly other examples of it. Arizona, San Diego State.
That's a basketball move.
Yes. What are your overall thoughts? If that's the move, you go get two, and those are the two you get.
Well, you want to be in California, right? Now you have West Coast more. Arizona 6 months of the year, your Pacific time zone. When is Arizona just going to get on one time zone at some point?
We all need to just get on.
Call my mom.
No daylight savings. Let's make that happen.
That went to the House or something? They need to vote on it.
Yeah, let's just make it happen.
That would be interesting. You already have the #1 basketball conference. All of this is about TV football revenue.
Correct.
Like Arizona brings you little to nothing in football. But Arizona geographically fits in the Big 12. Now you have natural travel partners, ... I wonder if the Big 12 feels the need to have like an even amount of teams, and then two, have an even amount in the Mountain and Pacific time zone or not. Obviously, if you could somehow get Oregon and Washington, that'd be great. Although it feels like if the Big 10 actually invited them, they'd probably take it, and now the Pac-12 just goes away. It feels like the Pac-12 is a house of cards right now.
Yeah.
But they could totally solidify themselves by getting a TV contract that, yes, is not going to be as good as everybody else, but they would be in a grant of rights, and they would still have their league. They could add teams if they wanted to. They could add San Diego State and Fresno State or UNLV or Boise State or whatever, depending on what they want. Are they going to add value? No, but they're just trying to survive. They're not trying to thrive. They're trying to survive. And I hope the Big 12 can be in a great spot. And trust me, I would love, if you were like, dude, Oregon, Washington, Stanford, Cal, San Diego State, Boise State, they're all going to be in this bigger Big 12. I would be like, that sounds amazing.
See, in theory, I agree with what you just said, but just surviving, if by surviving you're bringing in schools that aren't adding anything and all they're doing is taking away financially, I don't know how that helps you survive.
Well, I don't know that they take away. They just don't add.
But that's taking away. If you're not adding something, you're taking away because it's another piece of the pie you have to give out.
Well, you could work with the TV partners and say, okay, if we add these teams, can we add that amount of equal share to every, or whatever. You figure it out. San Diego State wants to be in.
There's no question.
Trust me, we know that feeling. Boise State's in some serious trouble, as you mentioned. I would love to be in the same conference as those guys. Although they want all that TV revenue, but also that, like Boise State's used to and likes winning the conference championship. Mm-hmm. Like I wonder, like Gonzaga in basketball is an interesting situation too. Is there any way Gonzaga in basketball is ever in, say, the Big 12 as an affiliate member in that sport only? By the way, Utah Valley is an affiliate member in wrestling in the Big 12. Like, that exists, which is really interesting. Could Gonzaga ever be just in the Big 12? But Gonzaga loves being the little guy that beats up the big teams and is the one seed.
And having the power.
They like that.
And having the control over it all.
I'm not sure they actually want to lose 8 conference games in the Big 12. You know what I mean?
Can you imagine
if you play with the, and I even joked with Mark Pope on Big 12 Day, September 10th last year. I said, think about it, Mark. If you go 500, this is off camera. If you go 500, he goes, we're not going 500. I'm like, well, we hope to be above 500 in year 1. That would be a pretty good record, right? But, like, it's a different game when you're in a Power 5. Like with BYU football, we're feeling pretty good right now, coming off 2020 and 21. We think 22 is going to be amazing. In 23, this is a new challenge. You've walked into the weight room. This is, something you can, understand. Is you walk into the weight room, you're putting more weight on the bar. You do not get the same amount of reps. Like, it is different. Like, 8 and 5 in the Big 12 is different than 8 and 5 as an independent.
Not all 8 and 5s are created equally.
That's exactly right. So we'll see what, ever since USC and UCLA, actually went to the Big Ten from John Wilder saying, hearing this will happen to announcement 5 hours later, I was like, oh my gosh. Nothing has actually happened since then. But, and it might even be like a year or two, but watch the Pac-12 TV deal. That tells us whether they will stay together or not.
I am fascinated with what is going to be said tomorrow by the Pac-12 Commissioner or Pac-12 Media Day. I am, honestly, I have no reason to watch anything Pac-12, but I'm going to be glued to his comments to see what he says.
Will it be on the Pac-12 network, and will you be able to find it?
It won't be because they want people to see it. So...
It's live on Paramount Plus. No, just kidding.
So I'm fascinated with what the commissioner says tomorrow for the Pac-12.
George Kliavkoff.
He has to nail that speech, talk, whatever, announcement.
He just gets up there. We're screwed. We'll pay you to take our teams. We'll see what happens, man.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Hopefully the Big 12 can get some more teams.
All right, coming up, who among you gets the elite voice of the day?
And who gets today's Rise and Shout Out? This is BYU Sports Nation.
Introducing the truck for adventure. The all-new 2022 Nissan Frontier doesn't compromise on power or comfort. This midsize truck was redesigned to incorporate the latest technology and designs for safety, comfort, and convenience. Plus, with up to 6,700 pounds of towing capacity and best-in-class horsepower, it's rugged enough for adventure and still safe enough to transport all your favorite people. Where's your new Frontier? You'll find it at Tim Dowling Nissan Southtown and South Jordan.
They prefer to be bringing the heat, getting set for success, demonstrating their drive. But when their blood and sweat turns to tears or anything else, we lay the groundwork for BYU's athletes to hit the ground running again, and you as well. Intermountain Healthcare, official medical provider for BYU Athletics.
Summer is back, and that means BYU TV's Supergirls of Summer are too. In fact, they're just like you. Whether you're loyal, determined, funny, smart, or all of the above, you're sure to make the connection with our Supergirls of Summer. Watch the Supergirls of Summer all season long on BYU TV or on the free app.
There are things happening in Seaburg.
They care more about people spending money than they do about people getting sick.
If they're causing toxic pollution, it is everyone's fight. We can't just let them get away with it.
If anyone can figure this out, it's my brother.
Friends don't abandon each other. Fine. Be heroes.
I know what it's like to love someone so much you'd do anything for them.
Whatever happens, I'm glad we're facing it together.
Me too.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
BYU Sports Nation is on demand. Download the BYU TV and BYU Radio apps today, or you can download the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And please, while you're there, subscribe, rate, and review.
This is from the hang glider that Jason rode a little earlier today over BYU's campus.
Well, let me tell you, it cuts down on the commute time.
You go fast, man. You beat the traffic. Before we get to our question today, we got this response about San Diego State getting a Power 5 invite, potentially, at PR Jeff. I wonder what he works in. Hey, hashtag San Diego State. Want a Pac-12 invite? Pull a Chargers and move your campus to Los Angeles.
I'm telling you, the Los Angeles State Aztecs has a real nice ring to it.
The California Angels of Anaheim. Yeah.
Aztecs.
By the way, brand new football stadium for them this year.
Yes, it looks really, really nice.
Which makes sense. It's like 35K is perfect.
Is Qualcomm / Jack Murphy still there, or is it been demolished? I don't know.
Oh, I think
is it still there, being used for something?
No, I think it's demolished.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is a bummer. The site of so many amazing BYU football plays, but that place was a dump. When we went there in 2016 for the Poinsettia Bowl, I was like, this place stinks. I get why they tore it down.
I've only been there one time, and it was the 2012 Poinsettia Bowl, or as I like to call it, the KVN game.
Yes, that was amazing. Okay, our question today. If the college football playoff were to expand to 16 teams in the future, how often would you expect BYU to be in the playoff? Our lead voice of the day, presented by Sundance Mountain Resort. Nate Crowley on Twitter. Once a decade is my overall expectation. That being said, the current trajectory from the last 2 years, I'd say twice a decade feels good. Once every 5, that's what you said. But let's be real, my heart bleeds blue, and I will unrealistically expect it every year.
I'm going to be disappointed every year.
Every year. Massive blue goggles. Today's Rising Shoutouts presented by Mountain America, official credit union of BYU Athletics. To playoff expansion.
Yes.
We hope one day it expands to 8, 12, 16, whatever. But also, and I didn't mention this yesterday, men's volleyball expanded from 7 to 12 teams, if approved, they're still working on it, in 2024. This is great because they've added 2 volleyball conferences and added 14 teams the last 5 years. So now the percentage of teams that from the field that will make the NCAA tournament in men's volleyball will be 19%, the same as college men's and women's basketball. So that's great, and BYU's got a better shot at making that tournament, obviously.
I do feel bad. When we had Sean Olmstead on, like, everybody's so excited about going to the Big 12, and
he's the Lone Ranger over there.
I feel bad for them. I really do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, MPSF, we still like it. Our thanks to today's guest, Josh Neighbors.
Conversation continues 24/7 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always use hashtag BYUSN.
Garden Dennis, we ran out of time. We know you're working on special coordination. Nope. For Jason, I'm Jarom. Shout out to Katie Larkin. Join us tomorrow for a look back at the 2020 BYU football team in Performing in a Pandemic. Go Cougs! And expand the playoff, baby.